I developed this incredible mantra of being stronger than your show. Keyword stronger. I was able to take breaks from Hamilton and not worry about what am I going to do for work because of the choices that I made earlier on. As an artist, you are a small business, but you're a human first.
Today's episode is about longevity, leadership, and what it actually takes to build a sustainable career in this industry. Tyler Mckenzie has spent over 8 years with Hamilton as a performer, universal swing, and dance captain, but what makes this conversation powerful isn't just the credits, it's how he thinks. We talk about being stronger than the show you're in, leadership that adapts instead of controls, financial literacy for artists using social media as a business tool, and about staying curious instead of chasing instant gratification. If you're a dancer who wants a long career, not just a booking, this episode is for you. Before we get into the episode, make sure to take a quick peek and make sure you are following or subscribed to the show so we can keep having conversations that inspire us to go after all of our wildest dreams. All right, you guys, I'm with Tyler Mckenzie, Broadway performer with Hamilton over 8+ years. He's from the original Philip Company ensemble to Universal Swing and dance captain there. He also has credits in Matilda, Mamma Mia, faculty at Penn State, Bold Dance Project, Visceral, and a fresh 2 Bali certification for yoga teaching. I'm so excited to get into everything. Welcome, Tyler, to Kicking It Real. Thanks for being here.
It's so good to be here. My gosh, when you list all that stuff, I'm like, wow. Okay. I love doing these because it really makes you like grateful for like the body of work. When someone like lists what you've done over the past few years, you're like, okay, I didn't just like sit down. Fierce. Okay, great.
No, like I feel that so hard, even getting ready for this. I was like, oh my gosh, she's done so much. I'm like, wait, but we all deserve to be here. And it just,
absolutely.
Even as performers, as professionals, I think it's so important to remember that we're just people as well. But
totally.
Just to warm it up, I ask everyone my 2 questions. What have you been kicking it with lately?
Ooh, what have I been kicking it with lately? Let's see. We were just talking about like the winter, and it's been very, I closed the Philip Company in this past June, and moved in with my husband, moved back in, I guess, because he was in Chicago for a new job. And I experienced the winter without having the disassociative support, I guess you could call it, of an 8-show week. And it's been a pretty difficult winter. Like I definitely realized what seasonal depression was. It was so confusing. I'm a very positive, bright person, and I never realized how affected I would get. And it was a really brutal winter. Like a lot of Chicago locals were like, this is wild. So just so you know, and I'm like, okay, awesome. It helps to name what the thing is. So right now I've been really kicking it with yoga, meditation. That's been keeping me very aligned, as well as a lot of K-pop music. I've been listening to a lot of K-pop bands. To name a few, let's see. Le Sserafim has been really fierce for me. We love a good Cat's Eye, the global moment. Meow is really fierce. And there's still so many that I have yet to like touch on. But for some reason, that high energy, really fun attention to detail and choreography and music has been very, very good for me, especially like when I'm commuting from my apartment to teach in Chicago in the dead of winter.
You're inspiring me to start getting into I need like new music, Rex.
Good.
Are you walking? Do you have a car to get to work?
I am walking. We are walking. We live in the Loop because my husband works in that area. So I've been teach at Visceral and dance on Broadway. So I do indeed take the train and sometimes the bus to go teach. So, and I thought I would be I'm doing it. So luckily it's happening, but I was so used to that with New York living, but it just never gets that. It's like a different type of cold in Chicago for sure.
And it barely makes sense to me either. And I, as a Chicago native, I never took any. I didn't even realize there were trains. I mean, I knew there were buses, but the trains and things. So I feel like it's nice that you had New York where you have literally no choice but to do public transport to go to Chicago. So you're like, oh, I kind of understand this. Yeah, but I don't know why it gets so cold there. I mean, the lake effect, whatever, but it's different. And I'm sorry, I feel for you, but we're on the horizon. We're getting towards
We're on the horizon. Oh yes.
We're so close. What are you kicking to the curb?
The winter.
Yes.
And let's see, what else am I kicking to the curb? I would say in a metaphysical, I would say, where I'm kicking to the curb thinking that there's something wrong with me, with my introduction this year to what seasonal depression feels like, they can change this into anything, but one can really dive deep and think that there's something incorrect or wrong with them. And I'm a firm believer that your feelings are valid, your emotions are valid, and as long as you are attaching yourself with things that are making you happy, that are bringing you joy, a little bit of brightness, then I think you're on the right track. So I'm kicking to the curb, feeling like something's wrong with you.
And it's so easy to feel that even not in seasonal depression. Obviously it's amplified, but it's just that we can get into it all of the rejection of things and thinking you're alone in those ways. But it is
totally.
I totally agree that grounding feeling of being present. I hate to say it like this, but what matters in life, with your people and your community and what you're doing that's filling your cup other than your career as well, which I love.
Totally.
Getting into your early career, you started as a singer and then you didn't start dancing until you were a junior in high school. So what sparked that pivot, and how has focusing on strengths while you build your well-roundedness influenced your early career in your teaching style?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Long Island, and I was singing right out of the gate. I took voice lessons, and I was always putting on these little shows in the living room. And I had movement, but not that codified, that training or anything like that. And I moved to North Carolina in high school, and able to get involved in musical theater, after school musical theater troupes and stuff like that in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And I ended up going to a magnet art school, and there was a dance academy and a theater academy. And it wasn't until I was taking a hip hop class or two from, at the dance studio or anything, but nothing that was honing in on skill for me at least. And we were doing an in-school performance, and we had this rehearsal, and I watched the dance academy and them rehearse their pieces, and I desperately wanted to move and storytell that way. And I was getting old enough to start thinking about business and being marketable and wanting to do this for a career and doing musical theater and doing shows and wanting to excel in the dance numbers and all that. So once I saw how people moved and how people did storytelling with their bodies, I ended up putting myself in classes. I swept floors. I taught tiny tots how to stand in a line and stuff like that in order to get free classes. I was putting myself in advanced classes just to catch up. I was a junior in high school at that time, and what I didn't know that I was really preparing for college auditions. I've gotten this mantra from an educator friend of mine: celebrate what's working, identify what's not, and then make a plan. And I really didn't know at that time because I hadn't heard those words yet, but that's exactly what I did. Singing came naturally to me. And then in college, the acting was really a huge focus. Ever since I graduated college, I've been doing more so major dance shows than anything. So I can't thank my younger self enough for putting myself in classes. So when I hear young students, I teach so much. When I hear students, especially in musical theater, in a way, they come to these dance classes, so many of them are very acting and singing focused.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I wish there were more intensive dance training in the musical theater space. I think that's still it's either you're going to a dance studio and you're competing and doing that type of work, or you're going to a musical theater space, which is usually voice and acting heavy. And then the dance is always an additional component. But what I really think, even with the shows that I've been in now, it's so important for you to have a deep connection with your body, whether or not you're going to kick your face or whatever, or be in major dance shows. I do think it behooves everyone and anyone to put themselves in as many dance classes as possible. It really did make me more marketable. And just because you put more energy into something, into the pillar that is not your strongest, I do believe that what really comes naturally will continue to be strong.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me.
That's so cool because I think back to when I was that age, when I was in high school, it was the same thing where I think I had fear, a lot of fear going into singing. I always thought it was cool, but I didn't have that mindset of how can I be marketable, future oriented, because I did go to a dance studio. Like you said, I think there's definitely a lack of awareness and education too, because as a kid, you're just
Yes.
like, this is what I know. I'm in my dance class or I'm in my singing acting class, and that's all you know. Was it the same person that had that mantra for you that kind of gave you that knowledge, or how did you find that on your own?
I think luckily it was very much an experience of me like watching really good storytelling movement wise and wanting to be able to do that. And then I had a bunch of adults, a bunch of educators who said yes, who saw the drive also back then. And I think still now, finding boys who dance is really important for spaces and really awesome. So that access was really, when I asked for it, I really did. I was able to get it. So yeah, it was a bunch of people. It was a bunch of educators who opened the door for me, who allowed me to come into class, who allowed me to look weird and wild. And I mean, I think I had a natural movement gift, and I was so determined to improve technique, flexibility, to get more control over my body and weight and all of that, to be able to grow in stamina and endurance. And the more I did that, the more I realized I can indeed classify myself as this, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. The importance of that, the energy you had behind it and your willingness to ask. I think that's another
Yeah,
thing that people are just afraid to ask for opportunities. It's either a no or it's hopefully feedback as to why it's not right now. I love the idea of it's never a no, it's a not right now kind of vibe.
totally.
Yeah, I love that. I wanted to do for fun, quick little like Hamilton rapid fire, just like fun questions before we kind of start to move past that. Okay. Favorite track to cover?
Favorite track to cover, I think, is Man One in most of the companies, because they're all a little bit different. Man One is usually Charles Lee. I think he has the best. He has such a good feature. He has really good tracking. I also have a deep love for Man Four, which usually does the gun solo and Stay Alive, because I was the OG Man Four for the Philip Company, which was the second national in 2018. All the tracks are incredible. They all have like these incredible pieces of principle, like authority and specialty. And it does help that I know all of them, like,
Yeah,
which is so wild. But I'm going to go ahead and say Man One and Man Four.
I love it. The whole thing is brilliant, which we could get into that, but there's literally not enough time. Okay, one word to describe the rehearsal room energy.
Dense. The material is dense. And as a dance captain, having somebody come in, because most of the time when you're coming into Hamilton, it's just you and the dance captain for a good amount of time. And it's just so much material, more than I think many shows out there. Because, as an ensemble member with many shows, you're in only a few numbers and you have a good amount of breaks and you're able to take breath and you're able to really recollect, and that it does affect the rehearsal process. With Hamilton, you're in 46 out of 50 of the numbers. So when you want to stop, when in the rehearsal process, when you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, there's still more to go. And we have a time limit until you have to go into the track, let alone when you're a swing and you have to keep learning your tracks. So I would say dense, not in a negative or positive way. It's what I've noticed is the most common of feeling is dense, and how it really is dependent on your leader, on your dance captain, on how they make the space and how they make that process feel with such dense material. And it really is up to the dance captain or the associate to create a space that is, yes, this is dense material. We have a lot to do, and it's up to that leader to make it a positive and safe and bold experience.
That's an incredible word to encompass all of those things. When you said it, I was like, oh, heard like that. I would have never picked that. I love that. Most chaotic quick change ever.
In Hamilton, there's not many actually. Because we kind of have like our base, we kind of have our base moment, which is really, we call it parchment because it's like the tan, that nice sleek look. I do know that the women, there are 2 women tracks that have a really, really like quick, like dress change. So they have to put on the dress for Helpless Satisfied. So I would say that, but in Hamilton, there's not many quick changes, which is really nice. I'm glad we've like, at least there's a lack of something that keeps it chill.
Something is like neutralizing everything just a little bit.
Yes. There you go.
As a dance captain, toughest note you've ever had to give?
As dancers at many shows, they ask you to give you like 120%. It's about brightness. It's about energy and loudness. Whereas Hamilton, it does ask you to pull back a lot. It asks you to hold the lid over the pot for most of the show, instead of boiling over, for cleanliness, for the audience to be able to focus in on the big picture without being overwhelmed, for blending in, all that. And I think many people who I've put into the show and who I see being put into the show, and even my own experience, I had to really work on not letting my own energy cloud the intention and the actual storytelling of the show. There are too many things to do. It's also so long that as a logistics standpoint and stamina standpoint, it behooves you to work smarter, not harder. So there are some times where you want to like be really loud, but the name of the game with Hamilton is to their percentage down, knowing that as an ensemble and as a group, you're sharing 100%. You don't have to take all 100% of the space. And when some actors and some dancers who come into the show, it takes a while for them to believe that their whatever percentage is necessary for that certain number or that certain choreography, that's enough. It's really different from marking. It's really keeping a secret, keeping the lid on the pot, and having a loud whisper, if you will. And it takes a bit for people to sit into that, enjoy that. And it does, after a while, they do realize that by working that way, you're able to do the show for a lot longer than if you were to give 120% every single night. And you have more fun keeping a secret and seeing how you can discover, honing in energy rather than it being outward facing, but keeping it on the face and keeping it into your inner fire. It makes you perform like a principal rather than it being like big glitter, which is necessary for other shows. And I think I've gotten the hang of teaching that element of the show and allowing dancers and ensemble members to take that and make that exciting for them rather than them thinking that they're being silenced or pulled back or being told not to do too much. It really is, it's an element of keeping a secret and having fun with that.
I'm smiling, yes, because I love that you, as a dance captain, articulate that to your dancers, because I don't know if it's strictly pre-professional to Broadway or just different shows as well. Obviously, all the shows are different, but I remember that so vividly, that feeling of you physically have to hold back. When you're doing 12, 15-minute numbers, like you said, you literally have to. And that intention behind it, the secret telling, the holding something in, it makes it, I feel like that's the missing element to not marking it. And it's kind of like, I don't know about you, but to me, it's sometimes cool. I'm like, this sounds bad, but how little can I give, but still
Yes.
like be doing it? It's kind of like a game then at some point. I don't know.
Absolutely. You do it as an actor. You do it as an actor when you're beating out your monologue or a song. Like you would never storytell in your monologue or in your song one note, and it would never always be loud. You would have ebbs and flows and hills and valleys. And I think if more dancers, I try to teach it in my classes, if more dancers thought about their choreography and their dancing as text work and like almost beating out the choreography if you have the time, or just getting better at likely doing that, you would go into your auditions and you'd have so much more colors to play with when you are receiving choreography and knowing, okay, I don't have to be as big in this moment. I can keep a secret, because when you change a beat next to the person who's just giving 120% energy, I know that with my eye and a lot of what choreographers and directors are looking for are different colors, and your eye goes to the person who it shows control, it shows strength, it shows versatility. And I think that wins over everything.
Yeah. Confidence in your abilities and your body.
Yeah.
I think the mind to body is really cool now. That was not rapid. We love it.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
No, don't. No, I'm like, yes, let's keep talking about it. I mean, that's the point. It's very, very casual around here.
Okay.
Your favorite number to perform versus to watch?
Ooh, I think it's the same. I think to perform and to watch. I remember I didn't see the show until I knew I was going to be in it. So most of the time, if you've never seen the show, before you start your rehearsal process, and that was in 2017, I was going in for Man 3 on Broadway, and I'd never seen the show. So they give you a ticket, you watch the show from the audience, and I remember listening to the cast album a bunch, and I loved Helpless Satisfied. I loved the rewind section. I thought it was so cool. And I had a very faint idea in my head of what that would look like on stage. And then when I watched it, I was like, whoa, that is really, really cool. And then learning it, let alone learning it multiple tracks and multiple companies and it being different tracking, I just think it's so beautifully staged, so beautifully set. The rewind section is gorgeous. You can feel the energy from the audience of like them seeing it's almost like watching a film. The turntable is used so gorgeously. And the idea of Helpless being told by one perspective, and then we rewind to satisfy. When I teach it, and when we talk about it in rehearsals, satisfied is helpless. Like you always have to remember, satisfied is helpless. It's just told from another point of view, and as humans, we all have a different way of seeing things. So if someone is able to watch Helpless and Satisfied multiple times, you can really clock the differences as well as the similarities from both point of views. I love partnering. I love connecting with people on stage. It's just, yeah, I have had such a love for those two songs and the two stagings, those two numbers for all my years during the show.
I've cried during a lot of shows, but like Hamilton was definitely the most frequent that I was just like looking around. I'm like, no, is anyone else just crying? Because it's everything about it, especially, I mean, as an audience member without any art background as well, but especially as an artist, I'm just like, so that would make sense to me. Okay, we'll just do one more. One word to describe your entire experience. That's so hard. Sorry.
I would say abundant. I was able to do so many things with learning about myself as a human, learning about myself as a friend. I've made so many friends and community with Hamilton. I will also touch on the financial, because I don't think love to sit in front of students, especially young students whose parents are telling them that they can never be financially successful in this like field. But I paid off my student loans in 2019. I bought a house, and this is all within one show. Now, not every show pays the same, obviously, but to know that like I've hit so many human adult accomplishments and checked a lot of things off the list that people were told only doctors and so-and-sos could do. And even some doctors and so-and-sos haven't done that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this was singing and dancing and acting and doing a show. And I didn't do it alone. I got a financial advisor, but I'm such an advocate for actors and artists in general of finding, when they can, a connection to a financial advisor to improve on financial literacy and being able to make a good living while doing what you love to do and while performing. And it's totally doable. I am very happy with the choices that I made, even pre-Hamilton. I started with the financial advisor when I was doing Mamma Mia in 2013. And because of those choices that I made and places that I put my money, I was able to take breaks from Hamilton and not worry about what am I going to do for work and all of that stuff because of the choices that I made earlier on. And I think more artists need to know that that's totally doable. I was not making a lot when I was doing the non-equity tour of Mamma Mia in 2013. I did the Broadway show as well, but I started my journey of setting myself up and educating myself of my financial opportunity early on. And I think all of us can do that and be very happy in the long run.
Yeah, steering away from that starving artist narrative that
Yes.
is so put on to us and breaking free of that. But it's cool to see that people are doing that now. And it's just more talked about now because
Yeah.
before, I mean, I remember when I just even moved to New York, I was like, I don't have money to save. Like, I don't have anything to save. And then my husband, I met him and he, financed it. We love that. Is that how you met your husband?
I met my husband in New York. He was an actor as well. And I was just finishing my first week of performances with Hamilton on Broadway. And we met at a gala. We were in the same agency, met at a really beautiful gala celebrating like 10 years of the agency that we were in. And I was singing and I saw him from across the way and people introduced us and we never looked back. So I've been with Hamilton for as long as I've been with my husband, which is so wild.
And you probably too was like, wow, and you're an artist that has it together financially, because it was the opposite for me. It's like, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
How has that helped your journey through Hamilton? Because the demand of a performer of a Broadway show is so intense. Is he still an actor? Or
no, I think he uses it. He uses it so much. He sells health insurance. So I say this in classes a lot too. I think those artists, like even if you don't go into musical theater or go into performing, we dominate spaces in a positive way. The skills are so transferable, whether it's in sales, whether it's in boardrooms. We know how to lead an audience. We know how to sell something. And a lot of the world right now is selling something. And leadership, all of that. And I think he definitely uses his acting skills while in his health insurance gig. So everyone should know that even if they don't go on to Broadway or something, you should know that your skills as an actor, your skills as a dancer, your skills just as an artist and that hustle and that storytelling is so transferable because there are people who have not taken those skills or who have not trained in those skills and they're not able to hold an audience. They're not able to hold a room. They're not able to lead. They're not able to sell. And I think we have that over a lot of people, which is
yeah, we forget that we're literally selling ourselves in auditions. Like you're leading by example to when you're teaching. It's really cool to see all the crossovers. And I'm sure it was probably a little helpful that he had somewhat of an idea of your workload and just could relate in that way. But I always love having someone also a little on the outside just because I can, like, I'm going to turn that part of my brain off and move into that.
Absolutely.
Do you think that there were specific things that your dance captain and swing positions specifically helped with evolving your skills that maybe were transferable?
Yeah, malleability is like such a big word for dance captaining and swinging. You have to be ready to switch tracks. I've switched tracks in a show, mid-show before. I've been called into a show mid-show. And I don't think my brain will ever be the same. My first time swinging was with Hamilton. I think it helped that I had my pre-pandemic, I was an onstage track. And I think having that longevity as an onstage track, I knew the show very well. Post-pandemic, I ended up being a universal swing. So I had to cover all five companies at the time, all 6 male ensemble tracks of each company. Whether or not I did all of them, I just had to know them. I had to be prepared at any time because the COVID of it all. So, and then with dance captaining, that came maybe a year after my first year of universaling post-COVID. So I had such a knowledge of the show as an onstage cast member, as a swing, just knowing differences. So I think what that has done for me, it's allowed me to hold myself up with elevation of what it means to be a good leader, what it means to communicate in a way that I know very well that every actor, every artist learns differently. And I think a good leader, a good dance captain is able to, if you have the time, is able to not code switch, but you know what the outcome is, you know what the result is. And I think I'm really good at knowing, okay, this person needs me to over explain. This person doesn't need much at all. And knowing no actor who doesn't need too much information likes being over explained to. And I think I have a really good energy reader and way of curating my teaching experience, curating my information giving to the specific type of person. So that also is transferable in rooms. That's also transferable in teaching, not Hamilton, and just being in teaching spaces and talking to artists who are in development. It's also really helpful in the yoga space when I am giving correction and maybe this person, where are these people in their journey and who needs the push and who simply needs to rest in that level or in that way, in this specific pose or this specific like asana, this movement, who needs more and who needs less at that given time, and being able to read that. I think I learned that over time with my leadership and my swinging and universal swinging within the Hamilton space, because I really had to be malleable. I really had to learn and see different people and different companies and different personalities. And I think that's what made me really good at the jobs.
I think that's such an underrated skill as a leader in both the dance world and just anything in life, is that concept of being able to perceive someone's energy, to perceive what they need and how they're going to perform best. And then you adapting to that instead of making that person try to adapt to your teaching style. And I think it's with everything, people also don't realize that you can be an amazing performer, but that doesn't always mean you're the best dance captain or the best swing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and you could also learn it, but it is something that I think is so important that I hope anyone listening that ever wants to do that keeps that in mind, because that makes a huge difference in not only the dancers' experiences or the performers, but probably yours as well. It makes your job a little bit easier when you can do that and adapt to that. For someone coming into Broadway position as a dance captain, what makes a dancer, a performer stand out to you in a way that makes you want to work with them more, that pulls you into them more? Maybe there's a memorable moment from like any of your experiences that kind of sticks out to you in that way.
Yeah. Well, I talked about even in my classes, I'm always gravitating towards someone who's able to take my choreography and almost, I will say, I'll use the term beat it out like you're a monologue, like giving me hills and valleys of storytelling rather than it being one note. I find that to be the most honest, and that's what I gravitate towards. It's so necessary in Hamilton because it's just such an intimate show, even though it's so mega and big. There's only for male dancers and for female dancers.
Wow.
And then there's 2 singer ensemble tracks in the male and female ensemble. So like we get to really perform as principals. And I've just been so, I guess with my time with the show, it's so long, I've gravitated towards that. I've gravitated towards the dancers, towards the actors, towards the singers who were able to have those hills and valleys and not feel the need to always be pushing, to always be loud and big, because we are not that as humans. We don't have the energy for that. So I think that's what I think it's really what stands out. And I learned so much about performers when it's not in the performance space, when it's connecting, when it's community. Who do I want to spend hours and hours of rehearsal with building this show? Who do I want to spend 8 shows a week with when we're touring, and not in a way that's like super luxury? Because not every show is sitting down in a city for 8 weeks,
Yeah.
So who do I want to be with me when I'm a little lost as a creative? I tell a lot of performers to be your own director, be your own choreographer. When the music starts, can you give me life? Can you give me energy? Can you give me choreography before and after? Because so many shows are not just the choreographer talking at you and giving you the movement. It's you messing around in the space and them being like, oh, that works. Can you do that? Can you teach everybody about that? Or it's how Hamilton was built too, is a lot of involvement from the cast. So, and even not just the original cast, I've taught people the show and gotten approval from higher ups for this person to do it this way, because it reads, it works, it doesn't look forced, it looks honest, and everyone doesn't do it the same. But this person does it in a way that furthers the story. So they are able to do that. Maybe not everybody else. And that's okay, because everyone has their thing that like, this works for this story. When I can see that a performer is independent as well as an incredible student always, I think that's the perfect sauce. It's the perfect way of creating, the perfect way of building a show, or replacing someone in a show. Though you are replacing someone, knowing that you're able to have your own identity and hit what you need to within the barriers of the show that furthers the storytelling. It's not to silence you. It's not to stifle your creativity. We're actors, and this is what the story needs. And if you're able to find the play within the barriers of the show, within the words of the show, then that's such an incredible skill. And it's really easy to see that with like a few 8 counts.
Yeah.
When you're teaching someone, you're really able to see that quick.
And I feel like it's just that presence that we kind of touched on earlier too, of just presence and being present in what you're doing, invested in the moment. I like that you mentioned also identity in that, because I think I'm a big believer in things outside of your career being a big influence on how you can show up in your career.
Yes.
I'm not sure on the timeline for Philip Tour closing in 2025. And then we went to Bali for yoga. Yes. Was that an abrupt closing, or did you kind of see that coming, or what was
Good
that
question.
like?
Very good question. When we came back from the pandemic, Hamilton opened up all their companies at once. 5 companies in the US, and there were 3 touring companies. There was Philip, there was Aunt Peggy, there was Angelica. And it's a business. So how it works is every company has their own company, has their own LLC. So if you're in the Philip company, your paycheck says Hamilton Philip. If you're in Angelica, your paycheck says Hamilton Angelica. And after a while, the need for that many companies in the United States was not necessary. So they just closed. They just closed it, and which was smart. You can see it. You really can equate it to it's not Walmart, but it's a corporation.
Yes.
It's not like a Broadway show that opens in a month and they get a closing notice. Yeah. And it's like devastating. I think we were in Chicago in 2023, and we got this company will be closing in June 2025 then.
Wow.
So it was a long moment. And they were closing companies for the sake of not exhausting the market already. So we understood that was happening. Even Wicked has done that. The big conglomerates have, even Six the musical, they had a couple companies out as well, because while the show is hot, let's make sure we can bring it to different cities at this time while it's still hot and people can benefit off of the show, and then they'll truncate it and streamline.
Yeah.
So when we got the closing notice, that was the time for people to really, are they going to stay into the end? Are they going to leave before a certain city? So yeah, it wasn't like a red flag or a negative thing. It's just kind of what business is. So now in the United States, we only have the Broadway show and Angelica 2.0, which is, we call it 2.0 because Angelica was the first company before Philip, and then it was Aunt Peggy. Then after a while, they closed Angelica, they closed Aunt Peggy, and then they closed Philip. But before they closed Philip, they had already opened Angelica 2.0 again with a new cast, a little bit of streamlining with sets to make it easier to travel, but nothing that the audience would notice. It really is, it's a business, and they want to continue to make it profitable. And if we had a producer on this call, on this podcast, they would say, oh yes, that's a smart thing to do because that's what we're kind of doing this for. We want to be able to make the money so that we can create other work. If you look at it like that, it's tough for me as someone who's been in the show for so long, who saw when they were, when they were making top dollar, and they're still making money. When it was hot, the perks and all that stuff were a lot better, or a lot bigger and all that. And there was a lot of luxury, and things quiet down a bit, and things start to streamline and get a little bit tight. You notice that, but you really have to look at it as like, this is a business. And if I were running a small business and I expanded and found that, okay, it's time to come back down again so that we're able to continue on with operations in a way that's profitable, and we're able to continue paying everyone and all that stuff, you got to do it. So that's kind of where the closing thing comes from.
Yeah. The supply and demand of it, I'm looking for a different word and I can't think of it, but it's when it's almost too accessible. So then you have to bring it back. Like the exclusivity feeling of it a little bit. I'm not speaking about me, of course, but just like in life, that once you have access to it, you're like, okay, like that's just whatever now. So it makes sense in that ebb and flow of that. Did you know you were going to be doing the Angelica 2.0, or did you have some time in between that?
I had some time. So we closed Philip, and I was like, this was such a fun circle because I opened Philip. I wasn't on Philip the entire time of it because I was universally and all that. I had taken some time off. Then that gave me the opportunity, once we closed, to go to Bali, to get my yoga certification, to spend more time and quality time with my husband. I learned a lot. It wasn't always beautiful because I did experience winter in Chicago, and at a time when I'm layering, what does it feel like to not be in a show at the moment and to be in a different city and all that, and just life on life on life. I've learned a lot. I did have the hope that I would be on that list of people when Hamilton needs coverage or someone to come in, they would call me, and they did. I was in Bali at the time, and they were asking about this specific track or this specific timeline as far as like being with the company from Kansas City to the end of Chicago. So the joy of being able to do the show again in Chicago and living at my apartment and going to the theater every day whilst it becomes spring was such a gift of timing. So I'm very happy that I was able to say yes to that. And they've asked about future dates. So I am definitely on that list of, just like, I would say I'm a part-time cast member. I come in every so often. They'll never throw my costumes away, which is a gift, or give my costumes away to anybody. I went on yesterday, both shows, and that was the first time I've been in the show since June. So it was fun to do the show again and to like be in the moment. And was it like riding a bike? Yeah, it very much was. So I'm happy to be back in the world.
And people don't understand what a gift that opportunity is, and like that company that they're willing to do something like that, because I don't think that's like super normal in a good way. Like that's maybe not a good way, but for you, a good way. I love that you're able to do that. So you kind of were like, I don't know what's going to happen. You were in Bali. Did you feel like you had that same balance throughout your whole prior to Bali of Hamilton performing experience? Because I'm sure you learned a lot of things that maybe helped with burnout, with just
Yeah.
overall sustainability, especially just having that hyper-focused training. Did you feel like you had that, or if there are things you've learned now that you wish you would have implemented before?
Question. What I did have with my pre-training, I had a very strong practice and a very strong commitment to, especially like the last couple years of my Hamilton life pre Philip closing. I knew that there was an end date. I knew that I wanted to finish strong. And from a very good friend in the show of mine, I developed this incredible mantra of being stronger than your show. Keyword stronger. And I think many of us we want to be strong enough for the show and strong enough to do and some people don't even get that far. Like, it's tough. It's 8 shows a week. It's a very hard show. And I believe even with the hardest show, there is a way. If you look for education, look for insight. I used yoga. I used HIIT training. I used meditation in order to be stronger than what the show asked of me. So it made the show a lot easier. It made the demand of being called on and being in the show in multiple tracks in a week very, very, I wouldn't say easy, but it
Manageable?
It made it manageable. Yeah, very good. Manageable. I felt exhaustion at times, but I definitely didn't feel like it was stronger than me. And I think if more people developed that way of living in commercial theater specifically, because that's usually commercial theater as far as like national tours and Broadway. That's usually where you're doing the 8-show week and the traveling and all that stuff and the tough schedule. I think if you're able to come up with a plan and you don't have to do it alone, I definitely had that strong connection with that. And then what I learned most in my yoga training, which I would love to have brought it into my world when I was in Hamilton before this, was like chakra and just a lot of spirituality. I'm curious as to how that would have been helpful, because it's definitely helpful now. I feel a hyper awareness of how the mind affects the body, how the body affects the mind, all of that. And that was like really, really enlightening when I was in my training, and how to also instill that in your classes. So I teach a lot of dance now. I put a lot of those teachings into my dance classes. I'm really excited to expand my yoga teaching opportunity. But that'll come, especially after I finish this Hamilton temporary gig coming back, and then we'll see where it takes me.
I love that. Yeah, just wherever life takes you. And like we said at the beginning, you have so much to back yourself too, to be proud of. Do you have a favorite role or what most fulfilling role aside from being on stage currently?
Let's see, within the industry space, yeah?
No, in anything.
So role meaning like position that I've done?
It could be whatever you want it to be. It could be husband, maybe, or yoga.
I see.
I mean, that's so cliche though, but yeah.
No, I feel you. I love that. Yeah, I think I'm a very good leader. I think I have excelled, my dance captain position was almost a year. It was one of the hardest assignments I've ever been given. It was a year after COVID, a year after coming back from the pandemic. So all companies, when people came back into their jobs, they were given a 1-year rider. So whether you had a few days or a month, when shutdown happened, when we came back, you were obviously like, you wanted the work. And a lot of people said yes to another year, since everything was open after a year and there were other opportunities and possibilities. A lot of people went on to other things. So my assignment, as far as how many people I had to put in, how many tracks I had to teach, was very, very heavy. So I was very, very busy. And now that I'm out of it, and I've looked back and been able to kind of recollect and think about the work that I did, I'm very, very proud of what the assignment I was given and how I did it and how I made people feel going into a show that has a tendency to really, really overwhelm. So I would say the dance captaining was even though it was very challenging and one of the most challenging things I've ever done, close to being a professor at Penn State during the pandemic. I'm very proud of what I did. I'm proud that there are people in this show that are doing the show because I taught them. There's a ton of leaders, so that's obviously evolved and shifted, but I'm proud to say and pretty confident that everyone that I taught had a positive experience learning the show because I'm the one who taught them it. And that was my goal. That was like the biggest goal of mine as a dance captain, was to make someone feel positive about a show, even though it's super dense and there's going to be a lot of moving parts and it's going to take some time, and it's really about development. And I felt the same way when I was teaching at Penn State and in a time where it was like pandemic, election, all of it. It was like so much.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, it was wild. So to make students, especially those who were about to graduate and didn't know what they were graduating into as far as like whether things were going to be open or not, or whether there would be theater. I didn't know there would be theater, but I did. I'm literally in this company. There's a cast member who I taught their senior year at Penn State. They're in the show right now. There's 2 people in this company that I've taught in their former years. So it really makes me excited as an educator to see students come and to be successful, and for them to have positive experiences and memories as far as their development that I had a big effect on or involvement in.
That was such a good. I'm like goosebumps, and also not to make it ego for you either, but also how cool that you are going to be remembered by so many students and performers as that person that made them feel empowered and made them enjoy it and maybe fall back in love with their work, because that's not always the case. I would love for it to be. I think that would be a great direction to move into, and your natural leader energy and love for it. It makes sense that you're in the teaching space now, and we're all lucky to have you. What is the most important thing you want someone to leave learning or feeling or knowing from one of your classes?
I really stress play. I think, especially in the early development, I think I gravitate as far as teaching to like teen and up, but most definitely, like, no matter what age, it's in a space where there's really big determination and wanting to remain curious. I've realized that in the recreational space, I'm not wired to teach in that space. My purpose is for people who are really focused on development and really here to whether or not you're going to go audition and do the thing. I just think I'm meant for spaces for people who come in and they're like, I want to excel at this and see where this goes out of curiosity. And I think remaining curious is something that I really stress in my classes. When someone leaves a class, even if they have a long way to go as far as development, a long way to go for what I see is necessary in this industry and they want to do this and be in rooms and audition, whether or not they have a long way to go. I do want as many students as I can to leave knowing that if they continue working on it, it'll happen. There's no there's no specific arrival, but there is if you continue to work on it. And I think a lot of people slow down that development and that process because they weren't told that they could. They weren't given a safe, bold space to play and to look wild. I know that I looked as far as technique and just ability and skill and skill set. I definitely had to be okay with not being the girly who has been dancing for her whole life. I had to work my way up to that. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, with social media and a lot of product and a lot of post production on social media, and a lot of students and youth are very uncomfortable with the process and it being slow sometimes and having to work on something and having to drill something or make something really like sit into your body and it not always happening in class. There's so much choreography, especially in Hamilton, that I nailed not in the rehearsal room. I nailed when I was practicing it in the kitchen or on the subway or all that stuff. And just being okay with process and putting commitment into the process. I love making students feel empowered and excited for said process. And that will lead to a better and a positive development process. And you'll get the result that you want.
I cannot agree more with the process and enjoying that and the instant gratification era that we're in. And I think I try to emphasize that to people too, that you have to love the process and fall in love with the work, because if not, you just want the result. Once you get to where you think you want to be, it's going to be a letdown, because the work never stops. The process never stops. So just falling in love with it. And I think it feels so much better when you know you had to work so hard for it, when you put in so much time and effort and you're like, wow, I did that, which I think is really cool. As much as I think social media it is a disservice in a lot of ways, and it's just growing in that way in our industry, specifically how you approach it and advise dancers to utilize it in a way that's going to benefit them now, because I'm sure that was not a thing when you were auditioning back in the day. Like, that didn't matter back then. You didn't have to worry about it.
No, I think I have a really mindful and balanced or harmonized, I would say, approach to social media. There are times when I'm posting a lot. There are times where I don't post if I don't necessarily feel like it's backed by, called to do it. And I think that has always been my way of doing it. There's not one way to do it. And I do know that it does behoove everyone, every artist, to have pieces of themselves, pieces of their work online on social media and in an elevated way. Be careful with how much you put on there. Get feedback when you can before you post. I'm very specific about what I post. I have a very, as far as aesthetic, as far as timing, as far as all that. I think we can also learn from how shows are doing their marketing now on social media. We can definitely see that the shows like Hamilton has millions of followers, and I think a lot of shows have taken a lot of pages from Hamilton's book on how to grow and how to sell tickets using social media. And I think I don't have a separate account for my acting compared to my personal. I think there's a way to do both, and there's a way to put it all in one. I continue to look at myself as a small business, as an entrepreneur, and I look at what my voice is. What do I want to say? Is it honest? Is it necessary right now? And I let that kind of lead me to whether I'm posting or what I'm posting. I don't know if that answered the question, but it's necessary. It's necessary. And it's also something that you can be very mindful and look at it like your audition package. Look at it at like you're a small business. And what do you like to see with small businesses? What do you like to see? Like, what makes you click? What makes you want to buy? How do you want to show up on social media, and lead with that? And also, don't be afraid to get feedback,
Yeah. I love that. I love that mindset of being a small business. Like, you are a business. I wish I would have taken that on sooner. I mean, times have changed so fast, so it's hard to keep up with it in that way. But I think if dancers and performers can just remember that you don't even go to Google anymore, you go to Instagram and you're like, let me look up this person. Have you noticed that if it has any impact on auditions or opportunities in that way?
I think I've booked a couple jobs without like that typical audition moment because of the materials that I had online. I booked the Mamma Mia at the Muni, and I I didn't even know how I got it. I got a text from my agent saying, hey, you booked Mom and Me at the Muni. And one, I'd done the show before millions of times. And I went up to the casting director at the time and I was like, how did I get this? And this was like after we opened. And she was like, you did the show before and you had materials online. And I was like, great. I'm taking this and teaching everyone that it really does when cause you just never know. Like the show was already cast and someone had booked something else, something not better, just necessary for their career. And they needed someone quick. You just want to have enough online. It doesn't have to be your whole personality. If there's pinning a reel or two at the top of your page goes a long way. And I just booked another show, in the fall, and I had materials online and someone DM'd me and, I think the social media of it all, not only is it the feed or the timeline of the materials, but it's also a communicative. It's really good for communication and people reaching out. So you want to be accessible. I think when someone is in a pinch and needs an actor or needs a performer and they're not able to access you, like, I just think you're doing yourself a disservice. Whether or not you're on Instagram all the time, like, that's okay, but at least be accessible. And because I had my materials as well as myself accessible for something that needed to be filled quick, I was able to book jobs. So is that happening with big conglomerate commercial theater? Maybe not, but I think a lot of people want to do a ton of different type of work. And I know I do, to be able to not have to always fly to New York or fly somewhere or have to self-tape all the time. I already have enough materials online.
Yeah.
That you're able to get what you need from me.
Yeah. Honestly, it's easier than having to have you film something and submit it and do all the busy work of it. It's like the LinkedIn for performers, really, because
absolutely.
What's a LinkedIn? I don't know, but
literally same. Oh my God.
Don't know. Do you have any advice for dancers in this position other than social media, ways that they could start changing their mindset and learning about how to approach as a business?
I'm telling a lot of dancers these days, a lot of people who are teaching are probably working on things. They're probably working on projects. And I think one of the first steps that I think a lot of dancers aren't taking is, if you gravitate towards a choreographer, especially in New York or major markets like Chicago, if you gravitate towards a choreographer and you like their work, see what they're working on. And if they need people for like pre-professional stuff before they go rehearse things, I think it's a lot of it is relationship and community. And if you're struggling to get into a room or book jobs, if you have the access of time, and maybe it's not always a paid moment, but if you have some time and headspace and the financial accessibility to do some work that is kind of the reward and the currency is community and relationship building or networking, if you will, I think that is a really great way to look at yourself like a business. I think many small businesses do that. They do collaborations, and sometimes the payoff is not, the currency is not the funding. It's the sharing of audience. It's the getting in the room and learning from this person on an intimate level. It's getting into the room and learning from this person, and then they have a relationship with you, and then their next project, they're like, oh, I already have somebody. Because things are so quick. That is why you see so many people hiring friends or hiring the same people. A lot of it is they trust this person. They've worked with them enough on an intimate level, and there is not enough money sometimes for them to do the long extended process of getting to know someone new or anything like that. So you don't have to do it to everybody, but how do you connect with people and connect with the person who you gravitate towards? And then they're giving you feedback and all that good stuff. I think that's such a really, really good thing for dancers to do, especially if they want to get into that. If they want to get into the associate swing dance captain type of situation, it's such a good route to take.
I think there's been such a push, which I don't necessarily disagree with, of artists getting paid for their work and knowing their worth. But I think that's such a good point of money is not the only currency. And as long as you're being super intentional with what you are getting out of it, so you're not being taken advantage of or being worked into the ground. But if you're like, this is my clear value, my intention, and what I'm getting out of this, I completely agree, more valuable than any type of money could be, because I don't know. And at the end of the day, it's about people and connecting with people, and who knows where you're going to get to, what rooms you're going to go into from being a good person and a hard worker.
Totally.
Underrated. If you could give your younger self advice, what would it be?
If I could give my younger self advice, what would it be? I think when I was younger, struggled with openness, especially when it came to storytelling. I was really guarded. I had a hard time being honest and stop acting and stop putting on something or showing rather than being in the thing. And I think that it developed, it got better as I got older. And I think that's probably just natural. But I would say, I would definitely, what I'm telling students now, like, remain curious, celebrate what is working and identify what's not, and make a plan. And knowing how enough you are just yourself in a space and how that will affect how vulnerable you are. Those are a few things I would definitely share with myself. And I'm so curious. Every so often I'm curious about how that would affect where I would be if I had an earlier opening in those ways. But everything happens for a reason, So I don't have many regrets, but yeah.
I know it's always such a hard question to ask, because I'm the same. I'm like, everything happens how it's supposed to, but also how could you make it easier on yourself? Maybe.
Totally.
If there was one thing that listeners took away from our conversations today, what would be the one thing you wanted them to remember?
You're a small business. As an artist, you are a small business, but you're a human first. And there is a harmony, not perfect, but there's a harmony of delicacy and urgency of how you protect your human and your business. If you can sit down sometime and really think about your core values as a human and as a business and lead with that, I think you'll have a really, really good time. It'll be challenging, but you'll have a better time as far as the development and as far as the process and the work that you'll get. And work begets work. There is no arrival. I just hope that people leave this conversation with curiosity on how they want to lead through life as an artist and a human as an artist. And if you harmonize the two with intentionality and with focus and care, you'll have a much better time in the challenging parts.
Yeah. Don't underestimate the humanness of your performer creative. I love that. Where can we stay connected with you on socials and see you perform and take your class right now?
I am on Instagram, Tyler Mckenzie. If you look for the name, it should pop up.
I'll link it too. Yeah.
Amazing. The website, tylermckenzie.net. We return to Chicago beginning of March, so you can see me perform in Hamilton at the CIBC. I will be posting my dates on socials every week. Hopefully we'll have some good times, a good schedule, so I'm able to share before, and then I'll obviously post when I'm on. I teach at Visceral. I teach an advanced jazz class at Visceral every Monday, 11:45 to 1:15. It's a great time. And then I also teach an adult beginning and intermediate class, MT musical theater class on Mondays at 8:15 to 9:15. So I will be keeping those classes while I'm doing Hamilton because Mondays are off. And I teach a few other classes on Dance on Broadway. It'll be a little bit, I post my schedule every week. So look out for that on stories on my Instagram because there'll be some pop-up stuff coming up based off of the show schedule, especially these next few weeks. The schedule will be on socials, and I'll be in Chicago up until end of May, and then I go to Alaska to teach for a couple weeks, and then I moved to our house in Asheville, North Carolina. We've had it since 2022, and it's so time to like create some roots and permanency and like see where that goes.
It'll feel so good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, you guys. You'll follow Tyler, like, subscribe, comment, all the things of what you loved.
Yes.
And I will see you guys next time. Thanks for kicking it real with us.
Hey.